have that it is 7:03, so I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here with us tonight as we have a discussion, Matters of the Heart, sponsored by the Concord Alumni Chapter. We are so fortunate to have Mr. Omar Carter with us, who is going to be our guest speaker. So thank you so much, Omar, for coming back and sharing your knowledge with us. To get things started off, we're going to first, I'm going to pass it over to our distinguished president of the Concord Alumni Chapter, Mrs. Bridget Herring Williams, and we're going to ask her to just first give us some greetings, and then next I will introduce our speaker, go over bio, and then we'll get going from there. So, Bridget, if you wouldn't mind.
Great evening, everyone. As a predominantly African American women's organization, Delta Sigma Theta holds a distinctive position to positively impact not only the well being of our members, but also the families and communities in which we serve. Among our 10 charitable partners is the American Heart Association. And given the alarming statistics that make heart disease the leading cause of death in the United States, with even more severe implications for African Americans, we thought that this evening's webinar would be appropriate. In observance of Heart Health Month and Black History Month, the Concord Alumni has proactively focused on raising awareness through education, advocacy, serving as a catalyst for change to address ethnic health disparities. Our series of informational sessions aim to inspire individuals to adopt healthier lifestyles, mobilize communities, and actively contribute to enhancing the health of all African Americans. Our heartfelt appreciation goes to our program planning and development and our health and wellness committees, as well as our moderator and our guest who is with us again this year, Mr. Omar Carter of the Omar Carter Foundation. Thank you to each of you for joining us tonight for this impactful conversation on matters of the heart. Again, thank you and welcome. And I will now hand it back over to our moderator, Sora Shirodra Williams. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Thank you so much for that wonderful greeting. So now I would like to just take a few minutes to introduce our speaker, which is Mr. Omar Carter. And after I introduce him, then Omar is going to tell us a few things. There's going to be a video that's going to be shown, and then he's going to talk afterwards. I'm going to ask, please, if you have any questions at all, put them in the chat and we'll go ahead and address them. He has a lot of information that's going to be so useful to us, as well as individuals that we may know. So please don't hesitate if you have any questions to go ahead and put those in the chat, and we'll be looking out for those, and we'll make sure that they are answered. All right. So without further ado, let me tell you something about this magnificent speaker that we have with us tonight, Mr. Omar Carter. So Omar is the founder of the Omar Carter Foundation, and this is a nonprofit organization that teaches CPR and AED awareness, and it also educates the community about sudden cardiac arrest. He serves as the foundation's board chairman, executive director. He has a passion himself for CPR and AED training because his own life was saved by a bystander who knew CPR in 2013. Omar is a graduate of Appalachian State University. So if we have any alum there, then you get a shout out to Appalachian State. And he also, the UCLA Anderson School of Management's Diverse Leaders Program. Omar also finished a Master's of Business Administration at the McCall School of Business, located at Queens University, which is in Charlotte. He is currently a senior accountant at Octa Pharma Plasma. And one really great thing is, if you guys are anything like me, I love sports. I love ESPN. I have the ESPN app. It dings. And recently, ESPN released a documentary on Outside the Lines, which was about Omar's sudden cardiac arrest and his survival story. So I'm pretty sure you can go back if you haven't seen it, and you can search in ESPN and pull that up so that you can see his full story. His former the documentary also talks about his former basketball career and his foundation and what an impact it has made on the community. Omar also has been featured on CNN as a guest analyst, and he has spoken at colleges and universities around the country, and these include Harvard as well as Stanford University. He's a former collegiate and professional basketball player. Omar is dedicated to paying it forward by volunteering and coaching with youth basketball teams in the Charlotte area. He's also a proud husband and guess what? A dog dad. So you got to love him. All right. So this is just a little bit about Omar. He has so much more that we could go on and on about, but that's just a little brief bio on Omar. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Omar while we're getting the video ready to go ahead and kick things off for us. So the floor is all yours, Omar.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. I want to express my sincere gratitude to the Deltas of Concord. I'll tell you what, that was a great introduction. My favorite part, obviously, is the dog dad piece. So I'm a proud, I guess, owner of two beautiful fur babies. But really quick, before we go into obviously what we'll talk about tonight, I know we have the video queuing up. Just want to talk a little bit about that. Had my cardiac arrest, which you'll see about 10 years ago. My heart stopped for 13 minutes while actually playing on the basketball court. And it was really cool just kind of making this video. Had a chance to meet the first responders. Had a chance to actually watch the video for the first time, along with meeting a lot of the bystanders. And so a lot of what you see in the video was what I was seeing for the first time when they did create it last year. And so hopefully you enjoy it. And then we'll be able to just kind of mention and talk about some statistics. Obviously, my story around what happened in the video, and then the Omar Carter Foundation. So thank you. Hopefully you enjoyed, and it should be about 10 minutes. So.
I hear every word that I say, and hopefully I inspire a lot of people in the right direction. But O's impact is as tangible and as important as anything.
He's arguably one of the best players in the world, the most popular player in the world. We have a relationship where it's like, okay, you're my friend.
It was a cool childhood, getting to know him, creating that bond, and now that foundation's still there.
But it's very hard for me to watch basketball after what happened.
It's hard sometimes to put into words, but to understand how quickly things kind of escalated.
I look back at the story and how everything happened.
Hyundai Ioniq 5 versus Ford Mustang Mach-E. Look what Ioniq 5 has, and what Mustang
And ultimately, I went a different way. Okay. Because it gives me a sense of direction.
You've probably never heard of 34-year-old Omar Carter. But once you've heard his story and about his lifelong connection with Steph Curry, it will be hard to forget him.
This is home. This is where it all started. This is where I met Steph and Dale and the whole family, and the rest is history.
Playing AAU basketball growing up, we connected really quick. I know he was a talented basketball player. He kind of had like that gravity around him, like anybody that talked to him felt comfortable, felt at home.
We would eat together, we would sleep together, we would play together. It was basketball 24/7. For me, it was more of a brotherhood.
Soon, Omar was spending time not just with Steph, but the whole Curry family.
To play sports, we had to get your schoolwork done. You had to, stay out of trouble, obviously. A lot of kids growing up with my kids saw that, so they gravitated toward that.
In 2006, when Omar was 16, his parents decided to divorce.
They were, yelling at each other. I wanted to be out of this situation. I text Steph, I'm on my way, or I call Dale, can I come over? And I left.
It was a real purpose to support each other no matter what it was, and be there for each other. And I mean, we take care of each other. That was the biggest thing. I think we appreciated that love and that connection.
It was an open door policy as long as you knew the rules once you came to the house. And again, the structure we're here, we talk to them about life. This is a place they can come, talk, hang out, and get things under control.
I just told him, I don't want to go home. And he said, you can stay. So that was my senior year. I was away from all my problems. It was almost like me being on the basketball court.
Around that time, Omar also joined Steph at Charlotte Christian Academy.
I wanted him on my team, not just because I knew who he was as a person, but that we could push each other to new heights. He could physically dominate you, or he could outskill you.
These trick shots that he was shooting now, been doing it. So we had a lot of success that season. It was pretty cool. Yeah, he gonna kill me for saying this, but nah, he couldn't beat me. He couldn't beat me.
That's the first lie he ever told you, probably.
Yeah.
So no, we that was the thing when we were playing in high school. We always work out together and we could push each other because you wanted to be great. Many nights we talked about everything, but definitely about what we wanted to accomplish.
We want to go to the NBA, for sure. But I just want to play basketball. I think that was his mindset too.
Omar went to Charleston Southern and then to Appalachian State. Steph played at Davidson, where he grabbed everyone's attention during the 2008 NCAA tournament.
The star of the tournament whose legend continues to grow, Stephen Curry.
With the 7th pick in the 2009 NBA draft, the Golden State Warriors select Stephen Curry from Davidson College.
Seeing your friend, it's like, okay, cool. Okay, this is motivation. This is what we talked about. I said, okay, it's my turn.
But Omar was not drafted. He played in Brazil and then the Dominican Republic, trying to catch the attention of NBA scouts.
That will to kind of get to that next level was always there. I always just knew he could accomplish whatever he wanted to, and no matter where it took him in the world, he'd be ready for it.
Then came the summer of 2013. It was the off-season, and Omar was training and playing in Pro-Am games in this small Charlotte gym.
I know, man. You just don't know how to feel. It was almost like I hear the game. I get the chill, but it was taken away from me though.
Well, it's just a simple fast break. And Omar comes in the court and he makes a simple bounce pass to Dorenzo Hudson, who lays the ball up. And as he lays the ball up, Omar starts, to backpedal.
I remember he just sort of stumbled backward. I actually thought he tripped.
At that moment, it was like almost a dead silence, like an eerie silence. All I heard is, he's not responding. Let me in, I'm a cardiac ICU nurse. When I checked his pulse, it was thready at first, and then I lost it and started CPR. There were a ton of people around, and then we were working on trying to get the defibrillator. So I shocked him one time, and then we got a pulse back.
I kneeled down to check for air. He said, ah, and his body jumped, and I saw his stomach, I said, all right, he's breathing now.
And we're back in third quarter planning. Adams quarterbacking this project, and
Omar was taken to Carolina Medical Center. He was stabilized, but in a coma. Doctors were concerned because his brain had been deprived of oxygen for the 13 minutes his heart had stopped.
When I got the call, I knew he was in the hospital and had heard what happened. Obviously, I started crying. Understand, like, I don't take anything for granted, but to know he was playing basketball when it happened was like the hardest thing to hear.
They do the CAT scan and they say there's a 3% chance of him coming out of a coma. You're gonna have to wait 33 hours. Like, we're getting all these things, and now I'm like, all right, so this is real.
The issue was, when Omar woke up, it was all about his cognitive, right? Will he be the same? Will he wake up? That went on for like 3 days. Myself and my mom was standing on each side of the bed. Omar opened his eyes.
First two questions actually I asked is, have we prayed yet? What day is it? And can I still play?
Doctors told Omar they had diagnosed him with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a disease in which the heart muscle becomes abnormally thick, making it harder to pump blood. Given the seriousness of his case, surgeons put an ICD, or implantable cardioverter defibrillator, in his chest. The device would detect and correct any irregular heartbeats.
I told him, I said, Omar, I don't know that I can clear you to play basketball.
I'm sad. I'm crying. Like, what are we talking about here? I still feeling some way now because I know how I felt at the time. You fought all your life for this. That's all you know. No, you're not in the way.
Slowly, Omar realized that part of recovery was acceptance and finding a new purpose.
Cardiac arrest, so my heart stopped for 13 minutes. I was in a coma for 3 days.
In 2014, Omar partnered with his heart surgeon and created the Omar Carter Foundation to raise awareness of sudden cardiac arrest and to teach life-saving skills.
We're going to teach you CPR. And then also the important piece too is do something rather than nothing.
I may take care of one patient or two patients in a day. Thus far in the foundation, Omar's taking care of 10,000, 15,000, and exponentially more because people are learning through the story that Omar has provided.
Through the work of his foundation, Omar hopes to teach 1 million people CPR and how to use a defibrillator.
Basketball was my life, but that's not the end of my life. There's life after basketball, and this is what I wanted to do, is the Omar Carter Foundation. you know, you always get excited to see him in action. But even better because, you know, your friend is coming to town.
Now you know the story of Omar and Steph, two friends with an undeniable bond.
Hey, don't believe anything he says, by the way. Don't believe anything he says.
You know what I said.
Except where he buys his bow ties. That's it.
The only thing I said was, you know, back in high school, you couldn't beat me. That was the real thing.
It started as a shared basketball dream, but has grown into something much bigger.
We went our separate ways as far as basketball was concerned, but the goal has always been the same. I always talk about basketball, but it's impacting lives.
Hopefully I inspire a lot of people in the right direction. But O's impact is important as anything. It's a lesson in faith and patience, perseverance, and taking a tragedy and turning it into something that impacts so many different lives.
So what amazing video. First off, one thing I want to point out is Steph never really said he could beat me, which we know I used to give it to him in high school. All jokes aside, I truly appreciate you sharing the video. You know, it's interesting these in our trainings, and it's truly humbling, and it's also somewhat sobering because it reminds myself kind of what we went through. And can you hear me okay? I'm sorry. Okay, they said my connection was unstable. What I went through, and that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight. You know, number one, just go through some more details of what happened that night. I think it's important. And we'll go towards the statistics, kind of what sudden cardiac arrest is, the difference between the two as far as heart attack, sudden cardiac arrest, that confusion, and then kind of talk about just the Omar Carter Foundation. And I'm glad, again, that the video was played because it's kind of that connect the purpose, right? You have an individual that kind of went through this, talks through it, and then kind of implements a plan. And so first off, you know, the video, again, does a great job of telling the story. Just to give you a little backstory about that, you know, when I was 16, just really quick, I had a little bit of pain that didn't have directly anything to do with my heart. But it was more so my mother only heard chest pain. Being the great outstanding mother she is, I actually went to the doctor. And when I went to the doctor, that's in some ways when my world was blown up. We did cardiac MRIs, EKGs, stress tests. I mean, you name it. I actually went to Boston, got the top tier, seen the top tier doctors. Baron Marin was, I don't know if he still holds the same title, but one of the best sports cardiologists in the world. I actually got a chance to see his son. I'm telling you this because at the time they diagnosed me with what was considered an athlete's heart. And so I knew for a period of time that I had more of an enlarged heart, but not the disease. And so for a 10-year period, I had playing extensively. I was playing extensively from college to obviously high school and even playing professionally. And so fast forward to what you've seen in the video, Kelly Thomas, the ICU cardiac nurse pictured on the video, very well saved my life. But the good thing was other bystanders there as well. And the AED machine that she talks about getting was actually upstairs in a locked closet behind a locked door. The lady said she would lose her job if she went to get it. Nonetheless, they did get it, and I was shocked. And one of the cool things is I got a chance to meet the first responders. And the first responders said it was about 8 to 9 minutes for them getting there. By the time I got there, I was still out cold. And at that 13-minute mark, that's when I was resuscitated and kind of brought back to life. One of the interesting things that the first responders mentioned is out cold. And it was his only 2 weeks on the job. And he said, I remember it vividly because he had thought about quitting because my case was so severe. And so while I was in the ambulance, he mentioned that my body kind of shifted. He knew at that time that my brain was swelling and that I wouldn't make it. And so in his mind, he told me I just got out of the ambulance. I sat on the curbside while I kind of just was carted away into the emergency room where my brother was actually meeting me. And at this time, I can't hear him, but as you know, brotherly love, a sibling's love, they're just really trying to just tell his brother everything's going to be okay. And so they start doing more compressions in the emergency room. And then I was placed into a medically induced coma. And just to give you a little bit more details about that. So when anybody has a cardiac arrest, they do what's called therapeutic hypothermia. Put you in a medically induced coma to preserve whatever life that you may have left, right? And I say that very candidly. And long story less long, I woke up and it was like it never happened. Doctors came in and said, you obviously had a cardiac arrest, but looking at your test, looking at your all the things that we've done, your body functions, the tests that we've done, it's like it never happened. We're going to move you to recovery. And so I don't push my faith on anybody, but I'm a firm believer in God. I read my Bible. And even before that, and I knew statistically everything that I'll talk about here in a second, it was impossible for me to survive. And so just to talk for you, just statistics, while it's fresh in our mind as far as my story and what I just mentioned to you. So when I initially went down, whenever anybody has a out of hospital cardiac arrest, you're already in the 90, that's 90% of people do not survive. So you're already in that 10 percentile, whether you have ICU nurses around you, whether you have doctors, whatever the case may be. If you're outside of a hospital and you don't have that equipment readily available, you're already in the 10 percentile. So if you take that 10%, and then if you don't touch the bystander, and let's use my case, for instance, if nobody would have touched me within that first 2 minutes, every minute after that, there's a percent that goes down to your chances of survival. And so obviously with the 13 minutes that I was not alive, if you will, even though CPR was being done, you heard my brother in the video mention I had a 3% chance. So they basically were prepared to say their goodbyes. It was a 50-50 chance. There was no brain activity going on. And then it was a matter of just, would I wake up? I think you heard actually my mother said in the video. But the good thing I also want to point out too is the bystanders step in. And statistically, 70% of individuals that do CPR, they're going to do it on a loved one, on a friend of a friend. They talk about 6 degrees of separation. Somebody knows somebody. And so when you talk about CPR, which I'll talk about the foundation here in a second, that number is pretty good because you're seeing more bystanders really get out here, really trying to save lives. But when you look at the Black community and you look at Black and brown, 1 in every 3 Black athlete, specifically basketball, will have a sudden cardiac arrest. And if you look at just kind of what we're seeing in the community now, from DeMar Hamlin to Bronny James, and people not on those platforms, I would venture to say somebody like myself, this is happening more than we think. 350,000 to 400,000 individuals die each year from cardiac arrest. And if you think about that, when you think about respectfully of all other diseases, cancer, lupus, MS, car accidents, any other accident that we're seeing as far as people having cardiac arrest. And so I mention that because when you look at the Black and brown community, and like I said, there's data out there now that says Black athletes, specifically basketball players, it's happening more too, and we don't know why. But the foundation was started so we could be prepared. And so the Omar Carter Foundation was started shortly after. If I may just back up a little bit, I do want to talk about just mental health around what I went through. Watching the video, as I mentioned before, I talk about it being sobering and humbling. It still is a problem to this day. So one of the things that I had to suffer, and I just want to be full transparent as far as my journey, it feels like one of my fellows dimension and 1 foot in another. When you think about just my time in the 13 minutes, I get to ask the question, did I see anything? that I have out of body experience. What I will say is I was at peace. I was at peace. I don't remember anything. It was almost like I was sleeping. But as soon as I woke up, I didn't recognize where I was. That drive home, it was pretty hard. Even my short-term and long-term memory, which I will take that and trade it in, have any physical rehab. It's tough for me to be able to kind of remember things. And so while I didn't have to go through physical rehab, the mental rehab is kind of still there, just making sure I remember names and events. But as far as that time that I was asleep, which I'll call it, it is a piece that kind of sticks with me. And so I knew I wanted to kind of give back. I wanted to make sure that at least us, not only in our community, but any lives or communities that we touch, they would know the difference between sudden cardiac arrest and a heart attack, but also just being prepared if something like this happened. And so the foundation was started in 2014, shortly after I had my arrest in 2013. We have 3 goals of teaching 1 million people bystander CPR. AED surveillance. I mentioned that the surveillance, the AED was actually in the locked closet behind the locked door in the county facility. And so the AED surveillance and AED donation piece is just making sure that we have enough accessible, especially in the communities that look like us. And then lastly, just being an SCA advocate. I've been blessed enough to be able to talk with or have stories on ESPN, CNN, speak at different colleges. And we have a few different programs where we're actually going within the college sector, teaching a trainer model, where we're actually teaching the athletes who then in turn teach their students. And we think this is better equipping them, right? We're trying to figure out what the problem is around SCA, but in the meantime, we can be prepared to save a life. And so I know there will be Q&As. Hopefully I did touch on a lot of what you did want to hear today, but I'm more than willing to share more of my journey, and hopefully this has been informational for you. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Omar. Before we move into the Q&A, I just want to encourage everyone. The link to the video was placed in our in the chat, because we do know we are sometimes at the mercy of technology. But I'm just going to ask, this is my second time seeing the video, and I'd like to say it still affects me just like it was the first time seeing it. So I encourage you to please go back if you weren't able to really see it. Look at that video so that you can really understand Omar's journey. And I think about this when he says it's hard for him to watch, and he experienced it, and I've seen it the second time, and it just, makes me feel a certain way myself just looking at it. So please go back to the link and look at that when you can. Omar, we do have some questions for you. And one of the first questions that came in is it more common? You were talking about basketball players and male athletes. So it is, or it is not more common in your male athletes than your female athletes, is one of the questions.
Yes, it is. It's actually more common in male athletes than female, and specifically more common in Black athletes, male athletes than female athletes. And had a chance to actually go to American Heart Association, their scientific sessions within Philadelphia. I've spoke at the American Cardiology, and I'm only bringing it up because these are topics that they're actually just now getting into. And you think this has been around for a while. And I'm saying all that to say is, based off of what I've done, the research that I've done, and I'm not an MD by any means, but the research that we're looking at is they don't know why. They don't know why this is happening, especially in the Black and brown community, and male athletes more than females. So yes, it does. And there's data out there you can fact check me on.
Okay. These two questions kind of coincide, but we're really wanting to know, if we're going to see our doctor, what type of questions do you think that we should be asking them to find out about this disease? when we're wondering for ourselves as well as our loved ones? And then also, are there any specific exams that we need to be asking them about when we're going to the doctor?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, obviously, if you get there, you're inquiring about what it is that you want the doctors to look at. I would specifically just tell them I want to get my heart checked out, and I would specifically ask for. And we know the medical field is kind of screwed as far as how much money and everything like that. I don't want to get into that, but what I did to make sure that I was able to play for the 10 years is EKGs, which you obviously get when you go to a doctor's automatically. What you don't get is a ultrasound or cardiac ultrasound. I think I'm saying that right. So basically, I had to each year just get a visual, almost like if a pregnant woman was going in to get the ultrasound of their stomach, I would get an ultrasound of my heart. If you want to get more extensive to make sure that everything is okay with me, I would get a stress test. So that's going to be another, I think, common test. And then what really will just show a full picture of your heart is a cardiac MRI. And I really think those will be the things that, as far as self, that you can really look at. This is just, again, from experience and talking with other individuals. I think what's more important is also just learning your family history. If you have a family history of heart disease, obviously we're talking about heart disease, but any disease, but specifically heart disease, high blood pressure, of that, then there may be some genetic stuff in there. Some of it could be just something that you can change with your own diet. And I say that for me, my case was a little different. I have a twin brother and genetic testing was negative. I don't have any family history of cardiac deaths, any cardiac issues. The only thing that my grandfather had was blood pressure, high blood pressure. And so when they were looking at me specifically for my heart muscle, one of the reasons they didn't diagnose me with a hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is the heart muscle is just too thick, was because my heart muscle didn't meet the criteria of the actual disease. But it was thick enough to get the doctors wondering as far as the question. And so I had a history of high blood pressure, so they figured, well, let's give him blood pressure medicine. Maybe that will lower his thickness of his heart. Only giving you that as an example of, I went through everything as far as testing. I knew those are kind of the exams and things that you may to identify. And they have things out there now that they're actually doing. Heart of a Champion with Atrium, Novant does something too, where kids are actually getting exams and stuff. So those are the 4 or 5 that I would do. And also, just make sure you're following up with your primary care.
Okay. Thank you so much. I wanted to touch back on a point that you had made earlier about, we all know that sometimes insurance plays a big role when we go to our doctors. So I just want to encourage everyone to also make sure that, if don't be afraid to ask your physicians for these things. They'll tell us, well, that's not covered in your annual exam. But we have to stand up, be advocates for ourselves, and demand that we are getting the care that we deserve. Because in the long run, you can find those resources in the end to navigate through insurance if it does come down to something monetary, so that we can get these tests and so forth paid for. So don't let that be something that's going to stop you from standing up and asking for the rightful test that we have. So I just wanted to say that. Omar, we did have a question to want to ask you. After everything that you have experienced, your journey and everything that you've been through, are you fearful, or are you triggered at all when you're playing basketball now, or when you're exercising? Is there a little doubt that's in your mind? What are you thinking about when you're in that situation?
It's a great question, and I think that kind of goes back to my mental health. So yes, if there's anything that feels off, or I don't know, I may feel a skip beat, which can be fairly normal. I do get fearful because I think one thing I've the sobering part of it is I actually went through the cardiac arrest, and my friends and family around me actually saw it, if that makes sense. So I really didn't know or see everything that happened. So I don't know, I don't remember what I felt. So I don't remember these things. And so whenever I do have those different feelings, I do get nervous. And how I've pretty much coped with that, one of my coping mechanisms is to keep my Apple Watch on
Okay.
and really just making sure I'm eating healthy. But that my love for basketball and just being able to exercise is just, it's not going to go away. I need to make sure that, I can look myself in the mirror and the wife is happy. So
Good, good. I wanted to ask you, you were telling your story and you were saying how the young lady the nurse that helped you said that she would lose her job if she went and got the AED machine. I was doing a little research on my own and found out that I think, where is it, in North Carolina, the only place where it's required, and correct me if I'm wrong, the AED machines are like state buildings, but as far as schools, sporting events, it's not required. It's just recommended. So I just wanted your thoughts on that, and if you knew what we could do to push to have that more, as something that is required, because I would think in a school we would want to have that as a requirement in our schools for our kids. If we have kids that are at sporting events, and you're at the gym, that it is a requirement to have it there. So do you know what we would need to do in order to push for that to be a requirement?
yeah, so I'm gonna make sure I try to hit everything that you mentioned. So in 2012, I think 2013, Governor McCory mandated that AEDs um, be in all government facilities. So it was surprising learning about the locked closet. So to clarify, the ICU nurse was with me. The lady that was told she would lose her job was working the clock and worked for Park and Rec, and they knew where it was upstairs behind a locked door in a locked closet. And what's interesting is you go into most government facilities and you don't see, they may be in the building, but I need to go back and see if they have to be in a certain place. They're
Okay.
most certainly not in gyms.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that the reason the foundation was founded was for the reason that you're mentioning now. I think the AD surveillance piece. Well, let me back up. I think we're slowly seeing mandates within the state government or federal government where they're making CPR and AD awareness kind of come to the forefront. So in high schools, for instance, CPR is required for you to graduate high school, but there's a huge gap there. They learn in eighth grade. They have somewhat refreshers throughout their tenure in high school after they're in middle school, and then they take a test in 12th grade. And these are from the voices of the high schoolers that I've actually talked to, specifically at West Mac, for instance. And I think it's almost like, as far as being bystander and just being advocates for this, I think really just having the voices of individuals that want to see change. I think that's really what we need to push for. And organizations like myself, organizations like the Deltas, if you really want to see a change, I really just think it's a matter of staying on top of our county officials, making sure that these things are prevalent, because I think that's going to open other conversations, right? We have AEDs in these public places. We'll take our health more serious. Our voices will matter even more. But specifically to your question, I think just making sure that we stay vigilant in spreading the awareness piece, but also when it comes to AEDs as well. Hopefully I answered all your questions.
Yes, you did. You did. You're good there. So this is, to lighten the situation a little bit for all of our wine lovers who like to have a little glass of wine. There was a question that says, do you really feel like a glass of wine is good for the heart, or is that a myth? So I think our wine lovers are going to want you to say, yes, I can have my wine all the time. But
You know, American Heart Association says a drink or two is not bad for you.
Mhm.
I don't want to give any type of medical advice. I will say for me, after all I've been through, I still will have a good glass of wine. But I think not only do, the powers that be here, but the Bible even talks about that, right? Everything in
Yeah.
moderation. So I think, as long as um, you keeping yourself safe, eating healthy, I think a glass of wine is good. But I need to do a little bit more research on the glass of wine. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I really
Yeah.
think it's really what is in our food. I really think it's our environment. I really think it's wine, because I think that has a big part in what we're seeing in healthcare today, as far as and really around sudden cardiac arrest. But that's just my opinion.
Okay. All right, let me see. I'm going to check and see if there are any more questions that anyone else has in our chat, or if I have not answered or asked a question that you wanted to ask Omar, please chime in now. And so that we can get him to answer that. So I'll give us just a few seconds to see if we get anything else in. And while we're waiting on that, I just want to make you guys aware of that, Omar is very, very active in the community. I know there's the Heart of Gold community outreach program that he has. He does book bags for CPR. Is that correct? He's the CPR ambassador for Appalachian State. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we do a few different things, if you don't mind me just mentioning it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's a lot of volunteer opportunities, a lot of opportunities you be active in the community. And so the initiative that you're speaking of is the Healthy Heart Collaborative. It's a CPR ambassador, college ambassadors program. So we partner with Appalachian State, Queens University of Charlotte, Shaw University, Lees McRae is now coming on board, Davidson College, and a few other high schools. We actually just talked to Novant yesterday. And the goal is to that trainer model that I was talking about. So we need volunteers to be able to help us out, being able to volunteer their time. We also partner with Elevation Church. So we just recently partnered with them to train their administration, as well as all 9 of their campuses. And I think they have 2 in Winston-Salem. And then again, we have other partners like Pepsi, all these different places to CPR in the community to be able to give back. So if you feel the need, you want to donate, let us know. The other thing was we have our gala coming up in October. It's really just a time for us to celebrate and you let your hair down and really see what we have going on. The other part that I'll mention is AED surveillance initiative. And that's really just to place AEDs within different places. So if you want us to come out to your church, to your community, to your business, we can also implement what we have going on. So, yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, oh, I think we have one more. We have a question that's asking if we would like to volunteer, where can we go to obtain more information about
Absolutely.
volunteering?
Absolutely. So our website, just go to our website, omarcarterfoundation.org. There is a contact us. So please just put it in the chat, or you can just email me directly, omar@omarcarterfoundation.org, or info@omarcarterfoundation.org. I do want to mention too, one of the things that I do love just about this month is really everybody really getting into heart health. Health.com, I guess this is a shameless plug, but health.com recently did a story on myself, just really around young Black athletes and sudden cardiac arrest. I'm saying that because not only is my story on there, but they're really looking at data, food deserts in the Black community, why sudden cardiac death is happening in Black and brown communities. So it's a lot of good information on there. I would encourage you to go look at that as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate all of the information that you've given us. And like I said, each time I hear your story, I learn more every time, and it really does touch me. So again, I hope that everyone felt like that they did gain something from tonight. So if there aren't any more questions, we're gonna go ahead and end things here. Thanks again to Omar for providing us with this information. I'd also like to give a shout out to Sora Renisha Edie, who connected us with Omar. She had him to come last time to teach us CPR. If you guys weren't there, you missed a great time with us learning that. So thank you for connecting us with Omar. And thanks to everyone who was instrumental in making this program happen tonight. So thank you very much, and I hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you again.
All right. Bye-bye.